Now, it's through the teachings of Its Imperial Majesty and these sabbatical readings, as well as the further teachings that will accompany this intensive schooling within the period of time that we have right now, because now that we come to an overstanding, unlike the so-called apostate, so-called Rastas who have gone away from the Bible, you understand, we rebuke them. But to the true and the elect and the mitmenan Ras TAFARI, that take His Imperial Majesty to have true imnet and amen in the King of Kings, take the King of Kings at His word. Therefore, for our part, we also have to glory in the Bible. And to get beyond that superficial level that a lot of so-called Rastas and the Muta Baruka types out there are dealing with. You understand? Because they don't know the royal language of the King of Kings that abbreviate the glory of His Majesty from Ras TAFARI. You understand? They're lost in translation as far as the meaning of Ras TAFARI. And when we see this lack of progress and productivity in our community and lack, it's a curse. You understand? Because it's not just judgment. So let's deal with this particular reading. Let's read to the end of the chapter, Bamarinya, all right, in the Royal Amharic of the King of Kings. Besima'ab, wawalid wa manifested Keddus, ahadu amlak. ORIT zedagim mi'raf asara sedist. Kakutera asara sementis kamacharasha. Amlakeh egzia behera bemiseteh beagareh dejehulu beyenegadocheh ferajochnina lekochinashum lehizbumak ina farda yifredu fardina tatamim fi ta'ayatehim atadla Gubo ayet ebebenyo chinna oina yasaura linna yetzadik annemak ala yat amimalina gubo atak ebella behiweta tenor zenda amlakeh gizi abeherim yemiya set hinna midar tewars zend Netanyahu farda tekatal le ante be mitasarawa be amlakeh be egzi abe hera mashawiyat agaba kamanacho wimazafa yemama lekia at eda adarge atitkala Amlakeh egzi abherim yemiyat elawin hauleta le ante atakum. Now, of course, this whole Sabbath, this entire Sabbath, the 48th senbet that we as Ethiopian Hebrews and elect Ras TAFARI are currently doing the readings and the studies of the readings. So we're combining the readings with the studies because so many ones are unfamiliar with this. So to give one a better foundation. So this is the parasha or the beit, the mi'raf, the beit mi'raf, and the abayat. The abayat or the beitoch in the Keddus. This is the beit we read. If we could show you, if we was in the visual, the video form of it, and we hope to step up to the video again, return to the video where we can actually show ones and zoom in on the book. But suffice it right now, let the word, hear the word, and the vision will come about from the hearing of the word. So we read from verse 18 to verse 22 of ORIT Zedagim Mi'raf Asaras Sedist, chapter 16, which is the first reading or the ORIT reading. You understand? Just the first portion of it. The entire reading is from Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 18 to Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 9. But that right there is really for when we come together to really study this, or when ones in their own home receiving a copy of this chart and learning how to calculate the time so ones will know what time it is, because it's later than most of y'all and most of us have been thinking. It's much later than that, as we're approaching this 2012 and the time of the Great Tribulation, we all have to take personal responsibility in the way of Christ in his kingly character. You understand? And have to not follow that disobedient generation of many of the so-called Rasta elders and others who basically disobeyed the will of the King of Kings and his Christ. You understand? They did not learn the Amharic language, they did not learn the roots of the Tewahedo roots or the Metzaf Keddus. And now the children, you understand, we as this generation are like that 40-year generation after Joshua and Caleb. Now this is very important because this is nearing the mid part of the last book known as Deuteronomy. And this particular teaching on Farajoch or Fetha, the judges, this subject follows immediately on the exhortation to appear at Jerusalem. From the previous senbet readings and the previous reading number 47 Sabbath, known as Ineho in the Royal Amharic or Rai, deals with Deuteronomy chapter 11 verse 26 to Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 17. That was for the previous senbet or the previous Sabbath. Now that we're in this new Sabbath, you understand, in this new Sabbath, now we're entering into that time as the evening, as we're approaching into the evening part of it, because we have to post this, we're trying to post this so our brothers and sisters near and far will also get the word. This is the next reading. So each of these readings for each of the weeks is very important, because what you'll find if you faithfully do the will of the King of Kings, if you make your will obedient to good influences and you take personal responsibility and you get over some of the obstacles that may naturally so-called be there in one's natural apostate state and get to a more iritical spiritual state, you begin to start to learn certain things, some very important things about our way of life, which many of the half-stepping Rastas, you understand, who have abbreviated and made a derivative of Rastafari, an unauthorized derivative, you understand, and many of them have turned their backs on this word, on the Metzaf Keddus, and on the Bible. So they're not our brothers. They may be our color, they may have dreadlocks, but they're not our kind. This is why His Imperial Majesty sent ones back and said, next time send the right people, those who are truly in the covenant and keeping the covenant, because when they reach the land, they will know what to do. There will be no doubt about it. Now, the subject matter for Shophetim, for Rajochin, Fetahete, the subject matter is judges in the gate. Is that there should be judges in the gates. So the reading Bangladesh says, judges and officers shalt thou make thee in all thy gates, which Yahweh thy Elohim giveth thee throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. Thou shalt not wrest judgment. Thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous. That which is altogether just shalt thou follow, and thou that the eye mayest live, and inherit the land which Yahweh thy Elohim giveth thee. Thou shalt not plant thee a grove of any trees near to the altar of Yahweh thy Elohim, which thou shalt make thee. Neither shalt thou set thee up any image which Yahweh thy Elohim hateth. This is very, very important. There's a lot of information to be garnered from here when we study it the right way according to the King of Kings. But let's get into some of the basics. First of all, it's speaking to judges and officers. So in the line of Jewish society, in the ministry of His Imperial Majesty, there needs to be judges and officers among all the branches of the line of Judah, wherever they are in the world. All of those who fellowship with us in the ministry of His Imperial Majesty have to understand what are the roots and the foundations of the King of Kings' house. How does the royal holy house, how does it operate? These are the instructions, and these instructions were given to the Beit Israel when they were in a similar position as we are right now. These instructions were given to the Beit Israel while they were in the wilderness. But you see, a generation had neglected to hear the holy word, just like in Rastas, among Rastas and Rastafari and the careless Ethiopians. A whole generation also has neglected. See, we put the careless Ethiopians and the so-called abbreviated derivative Rastas, half-step and Rastas, in the same category. You know what I'm saying? Of the Lord's people, the two families of the Lord. You know what I'm saying? They're in the same category. They both heard the word but failed to do the word. You know what I'm saying? And that failure has caused this 40-year, this generation gap that we are currently suffering right now and currently going through.